The devil, perhaps the most well-known antagonist of all time. Variations of him exist across religions, such as Angermanu in Zoroastrianism, Ilbis in Islam, or even Yabda Oath in Gnosticism. While every one of these adaptations of the Prince of Darkness is interesting, I want to focus on the Christian devil, commonly called Satan. Satan is a bad guy, the embodiment of badness, actually. And if I've learned anything from postmodern Hollywood media, it's that no one is actually evil. They just have severe mental illness. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to see if evil personified fits that criteria for any of the mental illnesses in the DSM 5, which is the handbook psychologists use to diagnose patients. If we want to diagnose Satan, we first must understand his behaviors and common actions. Satan is found numerous times across the Bible, with many names for him. Rather than going through every single mention of him, I think it'd be better to hit three character defining moments. The first chronological event we know of in Satan's life is his rebellion against God. In Ezekiel 28:11 through 19, we are told that before his fall, Satan was an angel named Lucifer, who was beautiful and perfect and served God. Isaiah 14:12 through 14 tells us Satan desired to ascend to heaven and set his throne there, becoming the most high in place of God. The last piece of information we learn about Satan's rebellion is from Revelations 12:3 through 9, which tells us he laid a third of the angels with him against God during the rebellion. There are several characteristics we can glean from Satan upon observing this event. The first is his pride, perhaps Satan's most well-known attribute. I think a better word in this case would actually be delusion of grandeur, as we are told that he believed himself to both be above the entire universe and above God himself. Along with this, we see that Satan hates being ruled and does not respect authority. We also get a slight hint of his charisma and his ability to convince others to do what he wants, due to him leading angels against God. Finally, I think we can all agree that anyone who plans long term knows that going against God is pretty dumb and probably won't end well. So we can assume that Satan has some traces of impulsivity. The next time we hear about Satan is from perhaps the most well-known Bible story of all time, Satan tempting Eve in the Garden of Eden. Genesis 3 tells the story, so let me do a quick recap. God creates a perfect world and allows Adam and Eve to live in it. He tells them not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or they will die. After this, Satan enters the garden and tricks Eve into eating the fruit. From this, we can get a further understanding of Satan's ability to manipulate and lie to others for his own gain. Satan also plays a major role in one of my favorite stories of all time, Job. Satan is only mentioned in the first couple of chapters, although that is more than enough time for him to act as the antagonist. Job 1 tells us that the titular character, Job, was a righteous man and was very happy, for he had a large number of sons and daughters, along with thousands of livestock. Satan goes to God and tells him Job is only righteous because God has blessed him. He convinces God to allow him to kill his children and steal his livestock, which God allows him to do. But Job is not angry at God for it. And so in Job 2, Satan returns to God, and God allows Satan to inflict Job with plagues. In this story, we see a certain sadistic side of Satan. Satan seems to simply Okay, well, hold up. That's a lot of alliteration there. Let's continue. Satan seems to simply desire to cause strife because Job is a righteous man who honors God. We can also assume that a primary motivator for Satan's actions is his hatred for authority and anyone that submits to authority other than his. Now that we have a pretty accurate understanding of Satan's personality, let's crack open the DSM-5 and see if we can find a mental illness that fits Satan. I think one of the first mental illnesses that come to mind when we examine Satan is narcissistic personality disorder. I think we've all heard of this disorder. It's characterized as a personality disorder, so it's in the same family as like bipolar or borderline disorder. Going through the symptoms, yeah, a lot of these ring true for Satan, especially has a grandiose sense of self, takes advantage of others to achieve his own ends, and lacks empathy. So is that it? Satan has MPD? Well, any good psychologist looks through multiple diagnoses to see if any other fit better. Another diagnosis I want to look at is ODD, or Oppositional Defiant Disorder. ODD is not anywhere near as well known as narcissism, but it's a very interesting diagnosis in the DSM-5. ODD is considered a conduct disorder, like pyromania or kleptomania. Going real quick through the diagnostic criteria, Satan definitely has a couple of these symptoms, although I don't think it's anywhere enough to actually believe he has it. There are a lot of other symptoms on this list that Satan doesn't have at all, like blaming others for his own mistakes or being touchy or easily annoyed. Also, ODD is almost exclusively diagnosed in kids, and Satan is at least 10,000 years old, so I think it's a pretty safe bet to say he doesn't have it currently. The final diagnosis I want to attempt is for Antisocial Personality Disorder, or ASPD. In my video on criminology, which, by the way, is a very good video if you want to check it out after this, feel free. But anyways, in that video, we talked about how individuals with ASPD display a long list of negative symptoms, including deceitfulness, a lack of empathy, and impulsivity. But that's only naming a couple. Satan actually matches almost all of these, making ASPD a much better candidate than any other mental illness. Because of this, let's go back to the DSM-5 and see if he matches the 4 criteria needed to be fully diagnosed. Criterion A states that the individual must have a pattern of violation for the rights of others, indicated by 3 or more of the following. Let's go through all of them. Failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behavior, as indicated by repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest. Deceitfulness, as indicated by repeated lying or conning others for personal pleasure. Impulsivity, or failure to plan ahead. Reckless disregard for safety of self or others. Irritability and aggressiveness, as indicated by repeated physical fights or assaults. Consistent irresponsibility, as indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior. And finally, a lack of remorse, as indicated by being indifferent to the pain caused to another. While Satan seems to fit every single one of these, let's go piece by piece. Satan definitely meets the first, as he killed Job's entire family and then came back with bioweapons to give Job a handful of diseases. Not only does this break the law, it also constitutes as a war crime according to the UN's Biological Weapons Convention. Satan meets the second, as we see him lie to Eve in the garden. Satan would seem to meet the third. I mean, he really saw an omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient being and thought, yeah, I should go fight that. But perhaps Satan is just really, really dumb, so let's do one more. Satan definitely meets the fourth, seeing that hunger, disease, and even death itself is primarily Satan's fault for it existing. With that, we can say Satan meets criterion A. Don't worry, the next 3 criteria will be much faster. Criterion B just requires Satan to be 18 years or older, which we know he is. Criterion C asks if there was any evidence of a conduct disorder before Satan reached the age of 15, which, assuming Satan rebelled against God in the first 15 years of creation, we can say he achieves this criterion due to him possibly having ODD at that time. Finally, criterion D requires the occurrence of antisocial behavior to not be exclusively during the course of a schizophrenic or bipolar episode, which, seeing that Satan does not exhibit symptoms of either mental disorder, I think we can say his actions were not a result of that. This means he fits the final criterion, and thus all criteria, awarding him the mental illness of antisocial personality disorder. Thank you so much for watching. This video was much more laid back than my usual content, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to make. If you want to watch something that's much more research based, please check out that criminology video I made. I think you'll like it. Otherwise, I'll see you around.